Hello, so this is my Call of Duty Vanguard review rambling. So this is really just from the perspective of someone who doesn't consistently play the game, just maybe plays it for about a week or two and then for a few hours a day and then takes a break and might not play it for months, so not really from the perspective of your usual kind of COD YouTuber. But obviously they've been quite negative about it recently. I've seen videos popping up on YouTube saying about it's called dying and stuff, so it seems like the reception to this game isn't too great from the more hardcore fans at the minute. And then as well it's really just based on the initial launch and then the bits of season 1 I've played through as well. But I'll talk about the campaign and then zombies and then multiplayer as well. I probably won't really touch Warzone. Yeah, so just off the top of my head, with the campaign, just starting off with graphics, I'd say the game's a bit more realistic and less like stylized compared to Black Ops, since it's obviously using the Infinity Ward engine as well, which is really just personal preference whether you prefer more colors and saturation in the Black Ops games compared to the Modern Warfare and then the Sledgehammer games now, where it's a bit more realistic and darker and grimmer. But for a 2-year-old engine, it looks quite nice, and for a cross-platform game as well. In the campaign, you can see some of the environments look quite harsh and detailed. You can see in the snowy one, seems a bit stupid to say, but you can almost feel how cold it would be and how uncomfortable it would be having to fight through, fight against the Germans in ice cold conditions. But then there's other areas which I don't think it looks as good, where like this jungle area, you can see it doesn't seem that, it seems quite desaturated or a lot darker than it should be, and it doesn't, you got all these greens but they're a bit more muted or darker. I don't really know how to describe it. It doesn't look as vibrant as it maybe like a jungle Pacific island should be, really, but the game does still look good anyway. I think the smoke effects and fire effects are really good in the campaign as well. And then obviously the cutscenes too. I don't think they're in engine. I think some company called Blur or something that makes, don't know if it's CGI cutscenes or what it is, but I don't think it's in engine anyway. But obviously the engine graphics has caught up a wee bit, so there's not too much of it, stark contrast between the two. Yeah, and then sound wise, I feel like the game's pretty good as well. The bullets or the gunshot noises, it's probably kind of catching up with Battlefield at the minute. Yeah, I think like you used to compare maybe Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3 to some of the Call of Duties, and Call of Duty used to sound like you were using toy weapons or paintball guns compared to Battlefield, but they have kind of stepped it up a lot more in the sound department, especially in the campaign. The only real issue with the presentation in the campaign is probably that the FOV on console you can't change, so you go from a good bit wider, maybe like 100 FOV on multiplayer, and then you go over to campaign, it's just really, really narrow. It's quite a big difference. You can, like, your field of view is probably, if you close one of your eyes, it's probably maybe even less than that. It's really bad on the campaign, but it's always been that way on console anyway, so it just makes it a bit worse when you can actually change it in one of the modes and then not do it in campaign. But I think I assume that's to do with them not being able to hold like a steady 60 frames per second, or they have to change on the graphics if they want to keep that FOV, because they're rendering more on the screen. So I suppose it is to be expected, but I mean, since maybe the campaign's not cutting edge graphics, you'd think maybe they would be able to put in an FOV option on the new consoles. Story-wise, it's kind of like a more heroic action hero take on World War II. So obviously, Call of Duty gameplay-wise, is you're a one-man army. Your teammates are useless. They don't really do anything. They're just there for show, really. But yeah, I mean, you're part of like the special forces unit of like 5 or 6 people. You get captured at the start, and he's basically sitting in prison in the current or present time in the story. And then you have these flashbacks explaining each of your squad mates' origins. So you're playing each of those different characters for at least 2 missions each, really. Each one has like a special ability as well, and it really just gives you a brief overview of what got them recruited. And then you meet a few. Each one has like their few side characters. So generally in each mission, there's like a funny kind of Joker character, and then a more serious one that would kind of talk down to you as well. Each one always has like someone sacrificing their lives, or getting killed abruptly after making a joke. But you don't really feel too much about losing those characters because you're only with them maybe for like 10 minutes before they're eventually killed off. But it's obviously played to have an impact on you. So yeah, and then each character is from like a minority group as well. The campaign kind of touches on how the Nazis would treat them in particular. It doesn't really mention about the Allies, but I suppose if you're making a game about Nazis, you're not going to say about the current racism or sexism in 1950s or 1940s, because I mean you've got the Nazis to compare that to anyway. But there's like a black British soldier obviously in the campaign, and he's kind of like the squad leader, and they bring up briefly about how the Americans wouldn't treat his kind too well back in the 1940s. So they do briefly mention it. But yeah, and then each of those characters generally plays through a different key historical event in World War II. So many of the battles you probably see in movies, so like D-Day, Pacific stuff, Africa as well. So you're kind of globetrotting, but you're doing it by switching two different characters. Yeah, so I mean the story is decent. I probably didn't like it as much as last year's one. Kind of like last year's 80s action where didn't take itself maybe as seriously, and it's a bit wacky as well. And then I think Modern Warfare generally does the more serious characters better as well. Captain Price is more iconic than any of the ones in this game, unfortunately. But it was still decent anyway. It didn't really overstay its welcome. I mean, gameplay wise, yeah, I mean the main thing from the campaign is that you've got these 5 or so different characters. You've got Arthur, who is the leader, his special ability is just to direct people where to shoot. So generally you get like a contextual pop-up where you direct them to shoot a tank or a sniper. And then you might have another mission where you're Polina, who's this Russian sniper you've probably seen in the ads. Her abilities actually are quite fun. So it's simply just like a contextual crouching prone button, where anytime she gets near, close to something that she can crouch under, like a desk or a vent, she'll move a wee bit lower and she'll move a lot quicker as well. So it can make some of the gameplay quite dynamic. I mean, her missions are quite good when instead of doing the usual kind of boring pot shots in Call of Duty, like shooting galleries, instead you're kind of locked in this room or almost like an arena. You're going around flanking, using a bit of stealth at the start, and then once people are alerted, you're flanking around, moving around cover, underneath desks, moving between vents. There's a lot more like we're just moving around a bit more tactical than just shooting dumb AI, really. And some of them are kind of less interesting, so you have less interesting abilities where one just has the arc of his grenade throw. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's not much really more to say about that. Yeah, and then obviously I said about the missions that generally ones that aren't shooting galleries, that are more those arenas where you're flanking around, moving a lot more, taking moving angles, a lot more fun than just one of the missions where you're sitting on a rooftop, shooting down on AI from a distance with a sniper. That's kind of not that fun because you're not really doing too much. Yeah, so I spent quite a bit of time on campaign, but zombies probably won't need as long because it's not as dense as the last couple of games. You have a map that's based on one of the multiplayer maps, so the multiplayer map's called Red Star, I think, and then they just change it to like a night theme, kind of spawn these wee items with skulls and spikes and stuff to make it look a bit more spooky, or a zombie theme to it. And then yeah, so that wee map would be your kind of hub area. And then how to open up doors in this hub area is that you go to a portal. This portal takes you to generally like an area like Shinonuma, just like a small isolated section of it, or another multiplayer map called Hotel. And you would complete different objectives. There's a couple of them. So there's one called Blitz, where it's just you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you just have to survive in this room with loads of zombies pouring in. And then another objective one where it would be Harvest, where I think you kill zombies, and then occasionally some of them drop like I think kill confirm, like a wee token, and you take that back to a certain area to kind of cash it in, and then as you do that, you're getting closer to completing the objective. And then Transmit, where you just guide an orb around, so it's like a escort mission kind of. Yeah, I mean the objective modes are fine. It would have just been nicer that if the hub area was a bit better, or if they had like even a different map, like another round based map where there's a bit more to it. I don't think there's any Easter eggs, which, I mean, I'm not a big zombies fan, but it is nice to have. I remember in the old games like World at War and Black Ops, trying to complete the Easter eggs or seeing like the teddy bears return on the radios so you can pass on. I don't think I have anything like this in this game. With Pack-a-Punch, as you see it, it's same as the last one, I think, where you just upgrade 3 times. Got a couple of different perks as well, but I mean, every time I play this game mode, I don't think most people seem to quit it after about 10 rounds. It's just kind of, well, a bit boring. But then you hear that Treyarch were apparently giving it, and they've only had a couple of months or so to make it, so what can you really do? Yeah, so moving on to multiplayer then, just after zombies. I mean, as I said, I used to play Call of Duty quite a lot. I could play COD 4, COD 6 for months without really playing anything else, but I mean these recent ones I wouldn't be into it that much. If you're probably looking for a more detailed opinion on it, or how it is more current as well, probably better looking at someone like maybe Blame Truth or someone like that. Obviously he's quite down on it at the minute. But yeah, I remember watching him back in COD 4 playing games, and yeah, people like that are exclusivists, maybe who, quite follow the patch notes and the updates. Maybe if you want an opinion like that, as I said, just listen to them, but it's just from my perspective of just playing parts of it and then kind of falling off. I mean, I kind of use this game to almost just level up my weapons. It's kind of like a training mode for Warzone, which I do enjoy, despite a lot of its issues. We're gonna run over here, but I mean, yeah, good things about the multiplayer. Probably the FOV, the good thing on the console since we'll get that as well. It's a bit annoying that they didn't copy that over to Warzone. But it's nice to have it here on console. The other thing is going back to the Infinity Ward engine. It's nice as well. Just that I feel like their games are probably the smoothest and best controlling on console. But you know, I mean, I'm sure some people have a preference for the Treyarch ones. But yeah, that's probably the most positive thing is that I don't think there's many other FPSs on console or FPS developers other than Respawn, make Titanfall and Apex, who would make a better playing game. I know people like Bungie's ones, but I feel they're kind of sluggish. Big difference control-wise, I feel, is that the aim assist is a lot stronger than the previous ones. So I'm obviously playing on console. I know a lot of PC players complain about it, but you do need aim assist anyway on console. But going from this to Warzone, it does seem like it's toned down a bit with the snipers in particular. But yeah, I mean, to reopen a can of worms talking about crossplay and stuff. I mean, I think it seems like close range you're better off on console, but then long range or medium to long range you're better off on PC. Other than maybe, oh, sometimes it can help with recoil if you're playing at a low sensitivity. Generally I play it like a higher one, but I'd say probably PC would have the advantage of shooting at longer range anyway. I think it would be nice to have console only crossplay, but I don't think they'll ever do that. I mean, there's plenty of things here that I think are on with the game that I don't think will ever change with Call of Duty, to be honest. I feel like that's, you know, I kind of don't mind this game, or I'm enjoying it quite a bit. That's more because I've kind of accepted that certain things aren't going to change, like the very short time to kill, kind of low recoil weapons, the focus on assault rifles and SMGs to the detriment of every other weapon class in the game. Other good things are just that, well, the 10 attachments, just because it gives you more customization. I wouldn't mind if even the side attachment didn't necessarily, well, in the old games I would prefer if it didn't count as an attachment. So the fact that you can just use all 10, you can just pick a side if you want to, just for personal preference, I think is a good thing. Yeah, I mean, the other thing as well is the magazine attachments, so you can kind of really change make big difference to the weapon. So some of the guns can have higher headshot damage but lower body damage. It's kind of a cool idea. It's good for variety. I know it looks a bit stupid, some of the ways you can design the World War II weapons, but I think it's the only way you can make a World War II game to keep up with the customization of a modern one, is just to go a bit wacky with it. Then what else positive? Oh, it seems like they toned down the skill-based matchmaking as well, which is kind of nice. Either that or just because I'm playing with the sniper a lot, my KD's getting hammered. Because the scope time's really slow in the game, so it's putting me with easier people. I mean, you can watch this gameplay here. None of these people seem to have motor reflexes at all, which is nice. I'm happy with that. Because it means it makes me feel that I'm playing well at the game. But I think toning it down is a good idea because, I mean, the old games, you played so many hours a day and you can notice yourself progressing, getting better and better. Because you're playing a random pool of people each day. Whereas in Modern Warfare, I actually played it quite a bit. And I felt like you were almost getting punished for the better you were getting at the game. So, I mean, I think toning it down is a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I should list this as a positive, but the fact that the game worked at launch was good thing. I mean, you see games like Battlefield where it was a complete disaster at launch. Normally I kind of prefer the Battlefield games. I'd say Battlefield is more consistent. Call of Duty has higher highs, probably lower lows as well compared to Battlefield. So yeah, I mean, on to the negative stuff. Lately, a lot of the patches that they put out, which seemed to be the case with Warzone, breaks a lot of stuff, so it puts you off. I mean, you think you're going to get a good weapon balance update, or a new map or something added to the game, and you're just more concerned with like what are they going to do to, you know, add bugs and glitches to the game, or just, you know, some attachments now going to make a gun completely overpowered. But it was good that the game had quite a stable launch. Probably why I actually got the game originally, because I wasn't very high for it and didn't play the beta, but the initial impressions of Battlefield weren't good, so and I didn't really enjoy Battlefield's beta, so that's kind of why I jumped on this. Yeah, so moving on to really the negatives. I think I said this before, but the time to kill, it is very, very quick in this game, but I don't think that's really going to change. It's kind of always been the way for Call of Duty, so it's just something to really accept, but it would be nicer for it to be a wee bit higher, so you react a bit more, and depends more on your accuracy and recoil control as well. And the bad spawns are another thing, so I'm not sure. Dome's a map from 2008. I'm not sure how come there's still people like spawn in front of each other on a map from them that they've remade a couple of times, I think. And there's other maps as well with that issue too. Other things like, well, the recent glitches were, I think it's probably came up in some of this gameplay as well, where the connection instability thing, or it had one where it says connection snapshot error and it kicks you from the game mode, which can be really frustrating too. The other thing is it just completely freezes for like 5 to 10 seconds, and just randomly since the update. It never really happened before on all my consoles at least. And it's probably more a general point, but just 6v6 Call of Duty doesn't really excite me as much as it used to, like 10 plus years ago. You see other games with these like 64 versus 64 game modes. See Rainbow Six with all its different type of destruction. You compare it to, you know, Call of Duty's type, where it's quite controlled and isolated, like it's only these very specific areas. It's not really as impressive. It just feels like there's less stakes with just the regular 6v6 Call of Duty. It just seems like we're going through the motions, just playing the same thing again, really. Yeah, as I said earlier, it kind of feels like the training game mode for Warzone. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's quite a few of the negatives there. Just to break it up, I mean, I like some of the classic maps coming back, like Castle and Dome, even despite its really bad spawns. It's just nice to see, and they have quite a lot more 6v6 maps. And I do like the chaos of the Blitz game mode. It's just the big, I think it's 24 versus 24, or I need to double check that, but it might be 18 versus 18, but just the higher player count, yeah, it just makes it a bit more chaotic and different from the old games. And then the other thing I like is it's silly that the different scope attachments and side attachments are all kind of clear, and there's a good amount of variety. I mean, all of them are quite good. There's none that I really hate. But yeah, I mean, the multiplayer is just kind of more the same. But I do like some of the maps, and is fun just to play for 15 minutes or so. Actually, the pace of the multiplayer is a good bit better than Modern Warfare. It's not like Campfest where if you run out you're going to get shot from like 80 different angles. It's more of a guarantee that you're going to get shot than you aren't going to get shot when you cross the road in Modern Warfare. I think it's helped as well by the fact that they have that field upgrade where you can continue on your kill streak.
We use the bouncing betters.
And I like that. Like what was game mode here? When your team's at 2 or 3, and just buy weapons in between each rounds, even though obviously just made up a load of rules. Oh, packet burst was that thing I was talking about earlier. That anytime it shows up, your connection's a bit wonky and hit detection and stuff isn't that great, so it seems to come up all the time. And I'm not sure if that's my connection or it's the game itself, but I've heard other people complain about it too, so must be kind of a common issue. Other stuff like kill streaks are quite similar, just kind of reskins of kill streaks we had before. Though the Juggernaut one's quite fun. I think that really covers a lot of like multiplayer. I've noticed that obviously a lot of the normal Call of Duty players on YouTube don't really like it, but well, I enjoyed it more than last year's one at least, so I'd say my opinion is probably a bit more positive. So yeah, that's it.